I put out a lot of short videos about propagation, propagating elderberries, propagating currants, just all kinds of stuff. And I thought I should probably just do a little brief primer on what propagation is and how to do it really easily on a few species that are super easy to propagate, at least in my opinion. So here I am in the propagation nursery, and you can't hardly tell, but right in front of you here is 24 different plants at various stages of growth and sizes, and red currants, many different blueberries. Here's a random peach. Here's a ronia. Oh, here's some blueberries that are ready to go. Wow, those are humongous. Those look fantastic. And then here's some aronia berries right here getting ready to ripen. And this landscape is specifically a mother nursery for propagation. I know it's a lot to look at. It's kind of chaos. But for the most part, I know what everything is in here. So going back over here to this giant elderberry that's putting out flowers and fruit everywhere. This particular elderberry is about 10 feet high. And what I want to show you is the stems, okay? See how there's these little bumps everywhere? I'm gonna keep this completely non-technical. So see how the stem has these little bumps right here? And also if you look right here, see how it's got these two little leaf branches sticking out of this kind of main stem? We're gonna refer to this as a node. There's a bunch of technical terminology for all the individual components of all these different kind of plants, but suffice to say, where the branches or where the leaves come out of, it's a node. These nodes, for lack of a better or more simplistic way of putting it, these nodes right here, and this elderberry has hundreds of nodes, okay? These nodes have programmable cells or have programmable genes. And what I mean by that is that depending upon where these nodes are on the plant and in the environment, they may turn into leaves or they may turn into roots. So this is elderberry. The nodes are super easy to identify. They're typically where the branches are. Here's an aronia berry. See right here, the tip of my thumb, where the leaf's coming out? Those are nodes. Down here, node. Down here, node. Everywhere that this particular plant is putting out any kind of activity is a node, and with aronia, they can be programmed to become roots. Here's a red currant. See where the leaf's coming out of here? And there's a new little micro leaf right there, getting ready to pop out. That's a node. And it's currently making a bunch of leaves. If this node somehow got pushed underground, depending upon time of year, it could potentially send out roots. If you look right here on this other red currant, I've actually pushed these stems, this one and this one, under this pile of wet mulch. Here's the tip of it right here. See how it's completely buried? All the nodes on that stem, of which you can see here, the nodes are typically every 2 to 3 inches, 2 to 4 inches apart. So there's 10 nodes or so under this mulch. If this mulch stays wet, those nodes are very likely to root, and they'll actually begin sending out new plants, new shoots up out of this mulch. And or I can simply cut this here and remove this whole stem as a separate individual that can easily survive on its own. This is a cultivar of blackberry called Ebony King. See right here? See how it's sending out a new little leaf, a new little branch right there? This is a node. And this is pretty easy to see. So typically right here, right at the base of where these leaf or stems are coming out of the main stalk, typically the base right at the tip of my thumbnail, that particular area, it appears to be where the majority of rooting would happen, or the majority of this kind of flexible genetic activity can occur. This is a Scotia elderberry cutting I stuck in water about 3 weeks ago. See all the roots here? See how it's going kind of crazy? Notice the roots are centered around that node right there. Both the node on the older, harder wood cutting, which is the brown color, and on this new shoot, okay? So you can see all that root activity right there. So if you look here, you're looking at hundreds of plants, actually approaching 1,000 plants here in this propagation nursery. And virtually every single one of these plants was propagated from a piece of stem or a piece of root. This is big top horseradish. Each one of these individual plants, of which there's probably 50 or 60 here total, was propagated by a single little piece of root. Maybe I can show you. There you go, right there. See that right there? That's a single little piece of root. The roots, just like the above ground growth, also have nodes. So now we're obsessed with talking about nodes. And there's a reason why, because the node is where all the activity is. So when you can reliably identify where the nodes are on the plants, which is super simple, once you start thinking about what that means and how you can reprogram the cells on that node to become roots, it kind of opens up a whole new world. Then you start freaking out, and then you start wanting to propagate absolutely everything. So this is kind of a crazy example. This is another Ebony King blackberry stem cutting. Okay, look at this. It just looks like a stick, okay? Not a whole lot going on here. However, you can see right here, that's a node. You can see right there, that's a node. Up top here, that's a node. So there's 3 distinctive nodes on this, 16-inch long little piece of blackberry cane. But look what's happening right here. This node is above the water. This node is beginning to put out either leaves or new branches which will contain leaves. If you look up here, look at that. Same thing right there. Little tiny bit of growth. Down here below the water line though, I do not see any roots yet, but they're likely to come. Not every single cutting you take is always going to send out roots from a node below water or below ground, but depending upon the time of year, depending upon the plant, the likelihood can be very high, approaching 90%. Heading back out into the nursery, and I'm going to find something to propagate together right now. So a whole bunch of chaos right here. This is a huge Scotia elderberry with like 50 gigantic flower heads, or cymes, these are actually called. So this right here, this is our specimen. This is a Willoughby blackcurrant. It's about 6 feet tall now. I think it's approaching its maximum size. And if you look at the branches, just like everything else, you can see nodes, node, node. Everywhere there's a leaf coming out's a node. There's thousands on this one shrub. I'm going to pick a branch here, probably this one. See how it's kind of leaning out into the walkway? It's also casting shade on some of these plants down here. So I'm going to go ahead and clip a little bit of this off. It's difficult to do one-handed. I'm going to go probably down about there. Okay, I'm going to pick this up. I'm going to take this into the nursery. This is a really great specimen. There's just a lot of activity, but like I said, nodes, 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 nodes. They're just everywhere. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pull off the majority of the leaves, and then we'll look at it again. So here we go. Looks like we took almost all the leaves off, because we did, and there's a reason why. One, we can actually count the nodes if we wanted to now. If you look right there, that's 3 nodes really close together. This being as small as it is, it's unlikely to be a very successful cutting for propagation, but it'll still work. I use stuff like this all the time. However, for beginners, I recommend slightly thicker, more robust looking wood. So you can see all the nodes on here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm probably just going to decide to take 3 or 4 cuttings off of this one branch. I'm probably going to cut here, I'm probably going to cut here, and I'm probably going to cut here, and then I'll get 3 or 4. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. All right, this looks a little chaotic. I went for 3 instead of 4. And you can see here, this is the base. It's got a thicker stem. It's got all those little side shoots. I'm going to leave those on. And this is the middle, and this is the top of that branch that we cut. Now, there's a bunch of different things you can do. You can put these into a water bath like this, and you can wait. You can wait a week or two, see if it gets roots. You can also put it into a cup with some sterile potting mix like this and mist it in water and keep it in the shade. And this is primarily what I do and primarily how I grow most of my plants. You could have large beds of sterile material and you could lay them on their side like this with just the very top couple nodes plus leaves sticking out, and you could cover them up and then water them regularly and also keep them in the shade for a bit. Or if it was the springtime, early in spring, you could poke a hole in the ground with a stick, and then you could drop your cutting right into that hole. And it has a high likelihood of being able to root through the spring, because if it's in the springtime and you took this during the winter, this would have no leaves on it and the wood would be dormant. When the wood is dormant, it is able to wake up in its new environment, which is the ground, or the nodes wake up in the new environment, which is underground. And because it's cold outside, the humidity is high, and evaporation is low, the cutting has a chance. It has a chance to get roots before it dries out. And if it can get roots before it dries out, it'll put out new leaves, new green growth, and it's probably going to survive. So what I'm going to do with these, I'm going to be real lazy. I got this water bath sitting right here. I'm just going to drop them in just like this. Real lazy. And I'll check on them in a week. They're right there. The purpose of the bubbler is to keep the oxygen content in the water high. It also keeps the water a little cleaner. You can see I got two little bubblers here. And it also agitates the water, since I try to go as many days as I can without changing it. And that also prevents mosquitoes from being able to breed in it. There's dozens of ways that you can propagate. And the primary methods that I use are stool layering or air layering, or dormant softwood or hardwood cuttings. Well, softwood typically happens in the springtime. However, there is a window of time for many plants where new growth is beginning, but it's still cold out. The humidity is still high, and there's not so much leaf that you can take those cuttings while they're still green and soft and pliable, kind of rubbery, and there's still a very high likelihood of success when you try to do propagation from cuttings during that time. So just to wrap this up, almost all plants have nodes. Those nodes can be reprogrammed, and those nodes can be reprogrammed based upon the context that they're in. So if they're above ground and they're getting hit by the sun and they're in the air, they're likely to become leaves. If they are below ground and or super moist or underwater, they're likely to become roots. There's so much detail and so much, little minutia you can get into, but suffice to say, many, many, many plants, if not most plants, certainly everything that I grow, can be propagated this way very easily. And I recommend that you try it. And I'm probably going to put out a lot more content specifically about propagating, different ways of doing it, that are going to be much more in depth and much more long form than this. I just felt like it's middle of summer. I'm still propagating the crap out of everything. Typically, they say that midsummer is kind of an not ideal time because everything is in full vegetative growth and there's no more dormant wood and it's drier and hotter and sunnier, but I still have pretty good luck. I do it all year round. It just depends on how busy I am, what the plant it is, and that kind of thing. So expect more content, but I'm really looking forward to questions. If you have any specific questions about anything, post them. I read all of them, all the comments, and I'll try to reply to everything. But I just want people to propagate. Just propagate everything all the time. That's like going to become my whole new little mantra. Anyway, have a good one.